The backstories of the crafting dead are often told through the world around us, but mostly fall upon deaf ears. But on occasion, there are scenarios within casual gameplay that make you think, what is the lore of the game? Allow me to elaborate. First off, we have to go into the server side of things itself. The very environment that we find ourselves in on a daily basis on the server. From examination of the server, we can infer much time has passed in comparison to other zombie franchises. I can infer this from the large overgrowth and structural damage sustained as of most players' routed areas. For large vines to consume areas of land in this scale would have taken time. A real-life example of this is the nuclear reactor site of Chernobyl, which, since remaining dormant for over 30 years, has seen massive greenery increase and influx in most complex areas where buildings and parking lots once were. It took 30 years for it to reach the state that we see below. Seems quite similar to the looks of CD's destruction and overgrowth. By no way am I saying that the crafting dead is taking place within a nuclear fallout of any sorts, as there is no reference of a massive bombing or evidence of remains of radioactive activity on server. So my estimation is within 30 years and up for the Crafting Dead universe, but this is not a viable number for me. I furthered my estimate through in-game signs. There has never been a operational vehicle within any server, nor has there ever been mention of devs adding a vehicle into any updates. Cars are unoperational after 11 years, give or take, as physical maintenance is required for the complexities of the modern day car to operate properly, as well as the fact that the government on any server has shown to attempt quarantine, even appearing to be in large-scale combat through signs suggested through maps like tanks, evac zones, laboratories, bunkers, safe houses, artillery pieces, Humvees, fortification, etc. Humanity wouldn't have fallen to infected if they were experiencing this kind of opposition. So telling from military ability while understanding the resources and general chaos and panic would have casualties pretty high on survivor's side. I'd say at least a year before everything fell apart as the way we know it now. So for 1 year to a few months less, they would have had some cars being manufactured, sold on those days. So there would be a different amount of cars that would have different ticking time clocks before they were a useless pile of scrap metal. Now, let's hit the nail on the head and get the exact time we need for us to get a more accurate time of where the crafting dead is actually taking place. Strange the same amount of time for the greenery as the tank inactivity, meaning with a basic idea we can at least have been here for 30 years and higher after the infection. Don't ask me how the milk somehow is still not completely expired and turned into moldy cheese. Now for the question everyone's asking themselves, infected or undead? I personally believe that the zombies we see in the Crafting Dead are infected in comparison to the zombies from the show The Walking Dead's undead zombies. Here's why I believe that this is the case. Infected within the game show signs of being somewhat human in biology still. We see this when we unload a magazine into one of the Sprinter's chests, which does kill it. That shows that headshots are required and vital organs in the chest are still being used. Not to mention that other bodily harm shows definite signs of body function. Infected, when shot, create a lot of blood particles, which to most people would seem logical since if they died with blood they still would have blood. Blood is only removed when you are about to be cremated or put in the grave. However, the way that it is removed from the body, how it squirts out when you shoot a zombie, means that there's still blood function because since there's holes being put in the body and the heart is still pumping, there is still blood being pushed out instead of merely just slowly oozing out or just collecting all in the legs. This would be the case due to the fact that since the heart isn't pumping and decay is already set in, the blood would be more of a paste instead of an actual liquid that we know it is now. I also relied upon the factor of our time we've recently established, that the infected would have already died out if they were mere corpse, because the base decay time is 12 years before they are literally lifeless skeletons, as Google puts it. It depends on the cause of death, really. However, no one would have been able to survive that long as a corpse. As Google puts it, in theory, nearly all zombies in The Walking Dead would be gone within 14 years after the outbreak. So in conclusion, if the zombies were actually corpses, they would have already decayed by now. So I personally believe that the infected is the only actual real idea of possibly how they could still be living out this long. Arguments against my point could be starvation and thirst. However, they could feed off of the weaker infected or infected that have already been killed or died over this time period to keep themselves sustained. Arguments against my point are the infection system has a system which, if a player is hit, they can be bit and infected. However, this seems to not affect the quality of the player's blood in any manner, which is seen when you use a blood bag and inject the blood from an infected teammate, but still don't feel any of the ailments of the person infected. However, perhaps there is more than one strain of the virus that work for more different tasks. One virus incapacitates the host while the other hijacks the body. Perhaps the reanimation virus is unable to infect people through the bite method, or just are unable to infect people with certain genetics. Sort of how some people get sick with the flu, while other people don't feel any symptoms at all. However, devs did say that they were going to add an infection system with a new update for the future, so that the reanimation of a fallen comrade perhaps may be true in the future. Also, before I skip topics, we also know that you guys probably have a question that you are curious about. If they aren't corpses, then why are their faces so distorted? This could be due to the bacterial infections which cause skin decay due to self-laceration of the infected, seen in a more aggressive nature. Or this is just from initial infection. One other option is that the brain is so swollen that the face begins to deform within the facial muscle of the infected. This could explain why, if you are not heard by an infected in an area with infected and stand perfectly still, they will pay you no mind. This could be due to not advanced AI. However, this could also show that the infected have a lowered sense of sight, perhaps even heightened hearing. This is also further backed up that infected will only attack you within a certain range, but will also remain in a dormant state. As well as the fact that infected seem to be found more within dark areas, which has been seen on server at nighttime when it almost appears more infected spawn at nighttime. Next question. What is the virus? You see, the last paragraph is just listed off a few signs of rabies infection. According to the CDC and other resources, the first symptoms of rabies can appear for a few days to more than a year after the bite happens. At first, there is a tingle, a prickling, or itching feeling around the bite area. A person also might have a flu-like symptoms such as a fever, headache, muscle aches, loss of appetite, nausea, and tiredness. Okay, let's break this down. There's a tingling, prickling, or itching feeling around the bite area. Well, we have our first point. This would perfectly tie into the self-mutilation or laceration that I referred to earlier. Infected subjects being left in a state of lower brain function due to the large pressure growing within their skull cavity would make infected extremely uncomfortable in their own skin. Now for the rest of it. Headaches, muscle aches, loss of appetite, nausea, tiredness. This could also tie into the muscle aches if players would not usually detect. If a player is not detected by infected, players can observe the infecteds shaking their heads in a sporadic way. To the average player, this would be considered shaking a head to not do something or take this as a joke. However, this could be called the neck spasm by the muscles fatigue, which we talked about earlier. So in conclusion, the virus is either rabies or a mix between rabies and the Ebola virus. However, this would most likely not be a natural occurring virus. So most likely this virus is a bioweapon that was created in comparison to a natural appearing one. Perhaps the virus is just an evolved version of rabies that we know today with a shorter infection incubation period. As infections on server depend on person to person, mostly depleting the body's nutrition as of water and food drop faster while infected. Now we know what the virus might be, but now we don't know who released it. We all have noticed some plot holes that CD never decided to fill in, or explain within the Crafting Dead. For example, in areas where the military would be found, you will never find a military infected. And maybe even the greatest plot hole error is supply drops. Every time we go to gather a supply drop, fresh supplies from the sky, dropped from a plane. A plane working 20 years into the apocalypse. Who is this group that is supplying us with all these resources? Could it be the military? If it was the military, then why would they not be having more of a direct interaction between us and the survivors, setting up decontamination zones, supplying protection to survivors? Why would they sit back idly and merely supply things through supply drops? And then you realize something. This group must be extremely organized due to the fact that they have airplanes. They have people to repair those airplanes, keep those planes operational, to drop supply drop after supply drop after all other vehicles have completely crashed and or died. So it makes you wonder, is there a group, the research centers, the bunker, a powerful group in the Dead Island server, other servers, that has been slowly helping us as survivors over time, slowly waiting in the shadows, either waiting to help us or to conquer us? What is their true intentions? Perhaps the update will shed more light on this. But until then, this will remain a great mystery. This is Braden Survives. Hope this video was entertaining to you as well. And have a nice day.